Have you ever noticed that your body simply doesn't respond the way it once did in your younger years? Maybe reaching climax now takes a little longer than it used to. Maybe the sensation itself feels different, softer somehow, or spread out differently across your body. Maybe you've found yourself lying awake at night quietly wondering whether something has gone wrong with you, whether you've somehow broken, or whether this is just the way things are going to be from now on. And maybe you've felt a little too embarrassed to ask anyone about it, even a doctor. If any of that sounds familiar, I want you to hear this clearly and take it to heart. You are absolutely not alone, not by a long shot. In fact, what you're experiencing is one of the most common, most universal, and yet least openly discussed parts of growing older. Millions of people are quietly navigating these exact same questions, often in total silence, often feeling like they're the only ones. The truth is that our sexual response naturally shifts and evolves as we age. This isn't a flaw. It isn't a failure. It isn't a warning sign that anything is wrong. It's simply biology doing exactly what biology has always done across the entire span of a human life. Our bodies change in 1,000 ways as we get older, from our hair to our eyesight to our metabolism, and our sexual response is no exception to that rule. But here is the genuinely good news, and I want you to hold on to this tightly as we walk through everything together today. Changes in sexual pleasure are not a signal that this chapter of your life is closing. They are not a door slamming shut. They are simply part of the natural rhythm of aging, the very same way our energy levels shift, our sleep patterns change, and even our tastes in food and music evolve over the decades. It's all part of the same continuous story. And here's what genuinely surprises so many of the people I work with in my practice. Understanding these changes doesn't just help you cope with them or tolerate them. It can actually open the door to more satisfying, more connected, and more deeply fulfilling experiences than you may have ever had before in your entire life. When you truly know what's happening inside your own body, you gain the power to work with it rather than feeling constantly frustrated by it. That shift in understanding changes everything. So today, we are going to explore exactly how orgasms evolve over time. We'll talk openly about what's completely normal and to be expected, what you can do to adapt to these changes gracefully and confidently, and how you can maintain real, meaningful intimacy and pleasure well into your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, and yes, far beyond that too. Hi, I'm Dr. Rosy Adams, and I'm a sexual health specialist. I've spent years of my career helping adults navigate the very real, very human changes that happen in their bodies and in their relationships as the years go by. I've sat with people who felt ashamed, people who felt frightened, and people who simply felt confused, and I've watched what happens when they finally get honest, clear information. And I can tell you truthfully, so much of the distress people carry around this topic comes not from the physical changes themselves, but from the near-total lack of clear, compassionate, judgment-free information about them. We simply aren't taught this. Nobody sits us down and explains it. So we're left to guess, and guessing breeds fear. That's exactly what I'm here to change. In this video, we're diving straight into a subject that's far too often misunderstood, whispered about behind closed doors, or treated as something completely taboo and unmentionable: how orgasms change as we age. My goal is to break down the actual science in a way that's simple, warm, and approachable, to gently clear away some of the persistent myths that cause so much unnecessary worry, and to hand you practical, real-world advice that you can actually put to use in your own life starting today. Whether you're single and exploring your own body, whether you're in a brand new and exciting relationship, whether you're in a long-term partnership that's spanned many wonderful years, or whether you're simply curious about how your body works and why it's changing, this video is absolutely for you. There is no judgment here, none whatsoever, only understanding, honesty, and a genuine desire to help. Before we begin, do make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you never miss any of our weekly tips for healthy, enjoyable, and confident sexuality at every single stage of life. It genuinely helps this important information reach more of the people who quietly need to hear it but don't know where to turn. Now, with all of that said, let's get started. How aging affects sexual response. As we move through the decades of our lives, several distinct physical and hormonal changes quietly begin to influence our sexual response. Most of the time, these changes happen so gradually that we barely notice them at first, until one day we realize things simply feel different. Understanding what's actually happening beneath the surface, at the biological level, is truly the first and most important step toward feeling completely at peace with it. For women, menopause typically brings a significant and often dramatic drop in estrogen levels. Now, estrogen does a great deal more than most people realize. This hormonal shift can meaningfully affect blood flow to the genital area, it can reduce the body's natural production of vaginal lubrication, and it can change overall sensitivity and responsiveness. These are not small or trivial changes. They can genuinely alter how arousal builds and how climax ultimately feels. But here's the key: knowing that they're coming and understanding the clear reasons why they happen takes away so much of the fear, the surprise, and the sense of personal failure that so many women feel when they experience them. For men, the story is a little different but equally natural. Testosterone gradually declines over time, usually beginning somewhere in the late 30s or early 40s, and then continuing its slow, steady decline throughout the rest of life. This gentle, ongoing decline can influence how quickly arousal happens, how firm and reliable erections become, and even the raw intensity of orgasm itself. None of this arrives all at once, which is part of why it can feel so confusing when you finally notice it. But here's something genuinely important that often gets completely overlooked in these conversations. It's not just about the hormones. Aging also naturally slows down nerve response throughout the body and reduces overall circulation. And since healthy sexual function relies so heavily on both a well-functioning nervous system and good, strong blood flow, these two factors alone can make orgasms feel different than they used to, or cause them to take noticeably longer to build and reach. The nerves are carrying their signals a little more slowly, and the blood is flowing a little less vigorously. It's all connected. Now, I want you to really absorb this next part, because it is truly the beating heart of everything I'm going to say today. These changes are completely, entirely, and reassuringly normal. Every single person experiences them in their own unique way, on their own personal timeline, at their own individual pace. And absolutely none of it means that your sex life is somehow destined to fade away or decline into nothing. Not even a little bit. That's a myth, and we'll dismantle it together shortly. When you truly come to understand your body's natural, changing rhythm, something quietly powerful begins to happen. Instead of fighting against the changes, resenting them, or feeling betrayed by your own body, you can begin to thoughtfully adjust your approach to them. You can start to explore entirely new techniques you'd never considered before. You can discover fresh, unexpected sources of pleasure. And in a great many cases, you can actually improve your overall sexual satisfaction compared to what you experienced in your younger years. I've seen it happen countless times. Knowledge really is the difference between years of quiet frustration and a genuine sense of freedom and self-acceptance. What changes you might notice? Let's get a bit more specific now, because I've found again and again in my practice that simply naming these experiences out loud, giving them clear words, takes away so much of their power to worry and frighten us. When something has a name and an explanation, it stops feeling like a personal catastrophe. So here are some of the most common changes that adults tend to notice as they age. First, and perhaps most commonly, a longer time to reach orgasm. Both men and women frequently find that climax now requires more stimulation, more sustained attention, more patience, and simply more time than it did before. What used to happen quickly and almost automatically may now unfold much more slowly and gradually. And I want to reframe this for you gently. This is not a problem that needs to be urgently solved or fixed. It's simply a new pace, a new tempo to your body, and it's one that can absolutely be embraced and even enjoyed once you stop rushing against it. Second, less intense orgasms. Many people describe their orgasms as feeling less explosive, less dramatic, or less overwhelming than they were back in their 20s and 30s. But here is something absolutely crucial that I need you to understand. Less intense does not, in any way, mean less pleasurable. These are two completely different things. Plenty of people discover that these gentler, softer, more diffuse and spread out sensations are deeply satisfying in their own unique right, and sometimes they find them even more enjoyable than the sharp, fleeting intensity of youth. Pleasure comes in many forms. Third, changes in what we call the refractory period. For men especially, the amount of time the body needs between one orgasm and being physically ready for the next tends to increase steadily with age. Where a younger man might recover quickly, an older man may need considerably more time. This is a completely normal, expected, and universal part of the aging process, and it's absolutely nothing to be worried or concerned about. It's simply how the body recalibrates over time. Fourth, variations in sensitivity across the body. As we age, some areas of the body may actually become more sensitive and responsive, while other areas may become somewhat less so. Rather than viewing this as some kind of loss or decline, I genuinely encourage you to view it as an open invitation. It's a wonderful opportunity to explore entirely different forms of touch, different amounts of pressure, and different kinds of intimacy that you may never have thought to try before. Your body is essentially giving you a new map to explore. Here's the deeper truth that ties every one of these changes together into one clear picture. Every single one of these changes is natural, expected, and universal, and not one of them indicates a loss of your sexual ability or your capacity for pleasure. In fact, and I truly see this all the time in the people I work with, a great many people report that their orgasms actually become more satisfying later in life, not less. And why is that? Because by that point, they finally know their own bodies intimately, and honestly, they communicate far more openly and courageously with their partners than they ever did when they were young, and they feel dramatically less pressure and anxiety about performance. That freedom, that release from the crushing pressure to perform, can genuinely transform the entire experience from something stressful into something joyful. Practical tips for enhancing pleasure as you age. Now let's move into the part of our conversation that you can actually take away and put into practice right in your own life. Here are some practical, medically sound, and thoroughly reliable strategies for maintaining and even deepening satisfying sexual experiences as the years go steadily by. First, prioritize foreplay and arousal. This one truly matters. Since our bodies naturally tend to respond more slowly as we age, spending more generous, unhurried time on the buildup becomes genuinely essential rather than optional. I want you to reframe how you think about this. Extended foreplay is not some tedious delay before the real event finally begins. Extended foreplay is the real event. It's a central part of the pleasure, not a warm-up act for it. It allows your body the extra time it now genuinely needs to become fully aroused and engaged, and in doing so, it very often makes everything that follows far richer and more pleasurable. Second, stay physically active. This particular tip matters far more than most people ever realize. Regular physical exercise improves your circulation, your flexibility, your energy levels, and your overall stamina, and every single one of those benefits directly and meaningfully supports healthy sexual function. A body that moves well and stays strong tends to respond well in the bedroom too, and you don't need to become an athlete overnight. Even a consistent daily walk, some gentle stretching, or light regular activity makes a real and measurable difference over time. Your circulatory system and your sex life are far more connected than you might think. Third, communicate openly and honestly with your partner. I cannot stress this one enough. So very much sexual dissatisfaction, in couples of every age, comes down to nothing more than silence and unspoken assumptions. Talk honestly with your partner about what feels good now, about what has genuinely changed for you, and about the new things you might be curious to explore together. Yes, I know these conversations can feel vulnerable and awkward at first, especially if you've spent a lifetime not talking about these things. But they almost always end up bringing couples significantly closer together, both physically and emotionally. Fourth, consider using lubrication or other sexual aids. For women who are dealing with vaginal dryness, and for men who might need just a little extra help with arousal, these simple tools can make intimacy dramatically more comfortable, more relaxed, and more enjoyable. I want to be perfectly clear. There is absolutely no shame in using them whatsoever. None. Think of them not as crutches or as evidence of some failure, but simply as helpful tools, the same way you'd use reading glasses to help your eyes. They're there to help, so let them. Fifth, actively manage your health conditions. This is where the medical side of all this really comes into play, and it's important. Conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure, along with a number of common medications that people take for various reasons, can significantly affect sexual response and function. If you're noticing changes that genuinely concern you or that seem sudden, please have an open and honest conversation with your doctor about it. There's no need to feel embarrassed. This is a routine part of healthcare. Very often, small and simple adjustments can make a surprisingly large and positive difference. Quick, actionable tips. Beyond those broader, foundational strategies, here are a few quick, practical, and immediately usable ideas that you can start applying right away, today, without any special preparation. Explore new types of touch or stimulation, because the simple truth is that what may have done very little for you at 30 could feel absolutely wonderful at 60. Bodies genuinely change over the decades, and so do the specific things that please and satisfy them. Stay curious and keep experimenting. Focus your attention on intimacy and connection, rather than fixating solely and exclusively on the orgasm itself as the only goal. Here's why this matters so much. When climax becomes the one and only measure of success, the entire experience can quickly start to feel like pressure and performance. But when genuine connection becomes the goal instead, pleasure, including orgasm, tends to follow along far more naturally and easily. Practice mindfulness or simple relaxation techniques to gently ease any anxiety you might feel around performance. Being fully present and grounded in your body, rather than being lost and trapped in a swirl of anxious, worried thoughts, dramatically improves both your arousal and your ultimate satisfaction. Even a few slow, deep breaths beforehand can help. And finally, don't be afraid to schedule time for intimacy, treating it with the same importance as any other essential act of self-care. Now, spontaneity is lovely and wonderful when it happens, but the honest truth is that consistency is what truly keeps a healthy sexual connection alive and thriving over the long term. Putting it on the calendar isn't cold or unromantic at all. It's actually a meaningful commitment to something that genuinely matters to you and your relationship. Myths versus facts. Now let's take a moment to clear the air on some of the most damaging and persistent myths that I hear over and over again, because misinformation in this area causes an enormous amount of completely unnecessary worry, shame, and heartache. Myth number 1. Orgasms simply stop happening after a certain age, and that's just that. The reality, the actual fact, is that while the frequency or the intensity of orgasms may certainly shift and change over time, adults can absolutely continue to have deeply satisfying, genuine orgasms well into their 70s, their 80s, and even beyond. Let me say this as plainly as I possibly can. There is no expiration date on pleasure. Your capacity for enjoyment does not simply switch off at some predetermined birthday. It changes form, but it does not disappear. Myth number 2. Any change at all in your orgasms must mean that something is seriously wrong with your body. The fact is that these changes are normal, natural, and vary enormously from one individual person to the next. They do not indicate illness, damage, or that anything is broken. That said, and this is an important balance, if you're experiencing persistent sexual problems, ongoing pain, or sudden and dramatic changes that come out of nowhere, those absolutely are worth discussing openly with a qualified healthcare provider. And I want to be clear about the spirit of that advice. It's not out of fear or alarm, but simply out of good, sensible self-care and attention to your own well-being. Truly understanding how orgasms change as we grow older allows us to approach intimacy with real knowledge, with genuine confidence, and with deep compassion, both for our own selves and for our partners who are on this same journey alongside us. So please, above everything else, remember this. Slower or less intense orgasms are a completely normal, natural, and expected part of life. They are not a loss of ability, they are not a personal failing, and they are most certainly not the end of your pleasure, or your sexuality. With a little patience, some honest and brave communication, and the practical strategies we've talked through together today, sexual satisfaction can remain strong and vibrant throughout your entire life. And for a great many people, it doesn't just remain steady, it genuinely improves and deepens with age. If you found this video genuinely helpful today, please take a moment to give it a like, and I'd truly love it if you'd leave a comment down below sharing your own experiences or any questions that might still be on your mind. And of course, do subscribe for more honest, science-backed advice on sexual health after 40. I truly, genuinely love hearing from this wonderful community we're building together. So let me ask you directly, and I really do want to know, what is one single thing you've personally noticed about how your own sexual response has changed over the years? Share it in the comments below, and let's keep this important conversation going strong. Because together, all of us, we can normalize healthy sexual aging, remove the shame and the silence, and make pleasure a genuine priority at absolutely any age. I'm Dr. Rosy Adams, and I'll see you in the very next one. Until then, please take good care of yourselves.